Hello, and welcome to the 2019-2020 Special Education presentation for Louisville High School main campus. I'm Amy Payne, the Special Education Department Chair for Louisville High School. I hope you find this video very helpful and valuable in regards to receiving special education information for the upcoming school year. Let's go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to go ahead and go through the continuum of services offered here at LHS main campus. First off, we have our SDI, or Specially Designed Instruction. That's instruction that you'll see in the general education classroom, and we'll get to that here in just a little bit. Also, we have a program recently adopted called BASE. Again, I'll get into more specifics later, but just know that that's the name of a specific program that you can utilize as a general education teacher. The rest of these are self-contained special education classes: BIC, SDI Full Pullout, also known as Resource, ALS, Academic Life Skills, AVLS, Academic Vocational Life Skills, and Functional Life Skills, FLS. You might have also heard of a couple off-campus postgraduate programs that we offer here in Louisville ISD. Those are called Project Search and Focus on the Future. I won't actually go into details in this video in regards to those specific programs, but if you'd like more information, I'd be more than happy to talk to you later on in the future. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. SDI, what is this? Well, IDEA, which is the governing law that establishes special education, says that content, methodology, and the delivery of instruction to address the unique needs of a student to ensure access to the general education curriculum. Okay, so what are the specific things that you need to have in order to have this specially designed instruction? It needs to be individualized, that means based on the specific student, be very significant, and also be intense. I want to remind you that specially designed instruction is actually taking students and working on a specific lesson to help them access things that others in the general education classroom already have access to. So we want to make sure that when we do this, when we actually take these students away during this time, we are doing something that is going to benefit them in the future. You've probably seen this before if you've been around for a little bit of time, but we've had a mind shift in the last few years. In previous years, our special education staff in the general education classroom was known as inclusion teachers. This year and previous years, this has been known as an SDI strategist. Prior, we were in assigned rooms and we had assigned minutes. This year, we have a flexibility in scheduling based on our students' need. In previous years, it's always been a package deal. We come in, we help assist, and that's all. This year, we're dealing with a specific group of a special skill set, That means when we come in, we have a purpose. We're going in there to actually make sure to connect something to a deficit area that that student already has. In previous year, this was all done in class. And this year, we recognize that there is a time to be in class and there is a time for pullout. So make sure that we are addressing these specific things as necessary for each specific student. What SDI is: it's planned, it's organized, it's meaningful, it's intentional, and it's a systematic process. SDI specifically addresses the student's needs as documented on the IEP goals and objectives. Therefore, we do not deviate from what the IEP states. If there are 60 minutes allotted in that amount of time but the student needs more, we will document the amount of time needed and make adjustments if there is a consistent discrepancy in regards to the services needed. We will not be pulling out students longer or shorter than needed. We will make sure to adjust time as necessary as appropriate for every single student. Things to think about: SDI services can be provided in class or with pull-out minutes, or these can be both. Best practices shows using collaborative, meaningful instruction using the co-teach models, which I'll address here in a minute, best services all students, especially our special education students, in the classroom. So these are our co-teach models. Your SDI teachers are very familiarized with these models and will be asking you to implement one or more of them. There's a team teach model, parallel teach, alternative teach, and station teach. Co-teach will generally be a portion of the period. SDI teachers will generally not be in the class all period. Again, that's a mind shift from the way inclusion used to work. Even if teachers are in the classroom, they will not be co-teaching the entire time. They are going to be designing lessons that are specifically targeted for specific students and therefore cannot be in the classroom teaching bell to bell. How will I know if I have a co-teacher? Well, that's a really good question. If you have a roster that is a 69 sum 4 numbers and a double zero, or a 69 sum 4 numbers and a 14 code, you will know that you will have a co-teacher attached to your roster. That SDI teacher will introduce themselves at the beginning of the semester. That way you know what you will be what you will be expected to be working with, and you will know what students you will have in your class. 6900, as we call them, students are students that receive modifications. Again, I'll get into that a little bit later. 6914 students, they are general education students that just have a minimal amount of services attached to them. So just keep that in mind. Can I have students who are in special education in my class with no co-teacher? You most certainly can, and you probably will. So, what you need to look for are the accommodations page that you will find in your shared Google folder. They will have a special education indicator next to their name in Skyward. I believe if it hasn't changed, it is the number 1. So make sure that you know who the special education students are in your class. Where do SDI small groups and small SDI testing accommodations take place? Well, here's where we need everybody's help. As you know, all classes are assigned on our campus. SDI teachers are required to implement SDI time, some of this being pull out. So we really need your help to be flexible in order for us to be able to implement these types of accommodations and groups. If an SDI teacher asks to use your room during your conference period, please be flexible and let us know if you have any questions or concerns. How do I know what they will need? Each student is different, so you need to make sure to access their Google folder as shared by the contact teacher. If you are curious about who the contact teacher is, can't remember, you can always go to the list on Skyward under the student schedule, and you can look at the person under advisor. That's on top of their first period class. That's going to say who their contact teacher is. If you have questions or concerns or notice something you think they need or do not need, please contact the contact teacher or your co-teacher first. I wanted to go a little bit more into 504 versus special education services. This has been a question that has been brought up several times in the last few years. How can I tell the difference between a student with a 504 service and a student with a special education service? Well, they look similar, right? Both of them have accommodation paperwork that you're going to receive in Google Drive. Students with special education services come with a team of people to implement and coordinate these services. This is the contact teacher, the SDI teacher, speech therapist, physical therapist, occupational therapist, special education counselor. I could go on and on. The general education teacher is part of that team, okay? This is different than the students with 504 services where there is no team and the accommodations must be implemented and coordinated by the general education teacher alone. Although designed as a team, 504 services are meant to be in the general education classroom and implemented by the general education teacher. But why? Seems kind of silly, right? How come this one group of people who have a disability have a whole team and another group only have one? The answer is how the student qualifies for services. In 504, their accommodations are truly just a blueprint. They've already been identified that these things are successful and they know how to use them. So when given those materials, they will be successful in your class. Accommodations can include things like a colored overlay, a wheelchair accessible desk. Just make sure that you're giving the student access to those specific accommodations, and the student should flourish within your class. In special education, it's a little bit different. These students still need instruction in regards to how to receive these services and what is appropriate for them. We're still teaching them the services that they need to be successful. Accommodations can look and may look similar, but you need to understand that these are different. And again, there is a team of people that are behind special education students. Where 504 students, it's truly on the general education teacher. In addition to accommodations, special education students can have pull-out time, they can have resource classes, behavioral classes, study skills support. You're going to see that reflected on their paperwork. That's why it looks a little bit different. If you have questions or concerns about any of this, we're more than happy to talk to you and explain more. Here's a little flowchart that I created to help kind of outline how things work in regards to 504 versus special education. You can see that 504 and special education both qualify for a disability. However, in 504, it only requires accommodations and it's implemented truly by the general education teacher. In special education, it's implemented by a team. That's because it requires specially designed instruction. Again, that teaching component that we talked about. It requires accommodations and it even may require modifications to the curriculum. Have no fear though, we are still here. As a staff at LHS Maine, we're a family. We're going to be here for one another. And although it is important for us to give each student the services in their appropriate ways, we're still here to help you along the way. We cannot provide accommodations for students who are not SPED. However, we can help you with suggestions, training, and encouragement. What does that look like? Well, we can trade you on how to record a test for oral administration within your classroom. We can help you with behavioral suggestions, and we can help you on examples of how to accommodate work. There are so many things that we can do to help you be successful, and we are more than happy to be a resource for you. Please understand that we are still here, and we would like to be a big help in regards to helping you figure out the best things that are going to help for all of your students. Just understand that we have to keep these two services separate in order to be adhering to the laws. If you still have questions, here's a great resource about 504 and special education and the differences between them. Also, feel free to contact me or Bailey Fry with questions in regards to concerns about specific students. The next question I'd like to go over is how much time should an STI teacher be in my class? And I wish I had an easy answer to this. Unfortunately, every single class is different. Every student's needs are different. Therefore, the amount of time the STI teacher will be in the class is going to differ. The key thing that's going to be the same across the board is going to be the teacher communicating what days and times they will be in class and how they will be implementing that specially designed instruction. STI teachers, again, will not be in class every day. Please communicate to them the days that would be best to be in class and incorporate their lessons or to do pull-out. We're going to go into a little bit of non-negotiables in regards to assignments, tests, and lesson plans that need to be given in advance. But just remember, the more we are given in advance, the more prepared we can be in order to be able to help with accommodating and modifying for students. Please keep in mind, a student who receives STI special education services and is a general education student as well. So even if they receive modifications and accommodations, they still need discipline tutorials, grade accountability, parent communication home, referrals in the system if those are appropriate for them. Please, please, please make sure that you understand that just because this is a special education student, as long as you are following their paperwork, they still need to have consequences for their actions. One of the key things that we kind of get hung up on is we go to talk about behavior, yet there are no referrals in the system. We need to make sure that if we are following the behavior plan and there are still behaviors that are occurring, that we are going ahead and writing that referral, whether it be a classroom documentation or something that actually goes to the assistant principal, so that we can communicate that we are having some behavioral difficulties within the classroom. Please feel free to let me know if you have questions on this. All right, modifications versus accommodations. I'm not going to drill and kill this. I just want to make sure that you kind of have a little bit of an understanding in regards to the differences between modifications and accommodations. Modifications, at its core, changes the grade level standards or objectives the student is expected to master. That means I'm actually taking TEKS away. Yes, that sounds weird, but it is documented in the student-specific paperwork. So please make sure that you understand that this is a legal requirement and must be done. An accommodation, however, can also be a reduction of the content. However, it still has to cover all of the TEKS. It does not reduce the grade level standards or objectives for that particular unit. If you have trouble understanding both, let me go ahead and give you some examples to see if I can make it a little bit more clear. In modifications, I'm focusing only on selected TEKS instead of all of the TEKS. That could be within a unit, only doing 1 or 2 components as opposed to 4 or 5. Curriculum expectations are below grade level. Therefore, that student may be reading on a 7th, 8th grade level and they're in your class. Therefore, we need to address the content as appropriate. Alternate assignment or projects to focus only on selective TEKS will be given. Again, this is special education only. Modifications cannot be given to students that are 504, RTI, or ESL. Examples of things that can be given to those students and should be given to those students are tests reading aloud, extra time in large print headphones, special paper, assistive technology, reduction in repetitive practice. Again, that's what I was talking about, cutting the cutting the actual assignment, but not cutting the content. Also, removing an answer choice, that's going to be one of those accommodations because you still are assessing that particular skill. Special education non-negotiables. This is new this year, and I want to go ahead and highlight these specific things as this is going to be something that is a requirement for every single teacher that has an STI teacher that they are working with. Let me go ahead and pull up the special education non-negotiables. I'll go through these just a little bit as you can kind of read these on your own in your own time. STI minutes must be met. If students are pulled out, it is the responsibility of the general education teacher to catch up students on what is missed during that time. This is why team teaching is essential if and when possible, and it is imperative that we communicate what's going to be happening during the day. Accommodations must be met when the STI teacher is and is not in the classroom by the general education teacher. Again, that's why it's very important that you understand what that student's accommodations are. Modifications must be met when the STI teacher is and is not in the classroom by the general education teacher. These will be provided by the special education teacher for all assignments given within the time frame as listed below. If it's not within the time frame, general education teachers must modify and present to STI teachers for review of appropriateness. This is the time frame. These are the things that we need in advance. Tests and assignments with keys need to be provided a minimum of 3 days in advance. Detailed lesson plans, 2 days minimum in advance with changes no later than 24 hours. Again, we kind of need to know things like your specific instructions or the actual document, why you're doing what you're doing, and suggested times. We can't really understand what an assignment is if we don't know what it is. So we need your help in either giving us the true actual assignment or going ahead and giving us a detailed list of how you expect it to be accomplished. If you're giving notes, we need a legible filled-in copy of notes 24 hours in advance. Step-by-step written instructions of lengthy assignment or lab assignments. Again, bullet point those things and simplify the vocabulary so that our students really can understand and follow along. At the beginning of the classroom, it would be very helpful if we have a classroom management policy outlined so that we understand what kind of things you're expecting. What is your expectation in regards to technology, restroom policy, late policy, those types of things so that we can uphold the same standard for our students. Communication on what will be taken for a grade and how it will be graded. Equal decision making and authority for all staff. Please understand that teachers going into your classroom and even paraprofessionals need to be treated with respect in regards to making decisions for the classroom. Any discrepancies need to be handled outside of the classroom without the students present. If there is something you do not agree with, go ahead and email that teacher. Can we meet? Have that discussion privately so that way it really seems seamless when you guys are working together. This grading policy is very important. Hard copy will be kept by the STI teacher on graded assignments for special education students. Gradebook entries will be entered by the general education teacher in Skyward and will correlate with the STI teacher has given. Any grade changes need to be met and agreed upon on an individual basis. What does that mean? I'm talking about a spreadsheet of some sort, something like in Sheets, where you can both access something, or an email correlation between the two of you in regards to what grade you give assignments for special education students. Again, the SEI teacher will assign the grades for the modified students. The 14 students are completely up to you guys. I really kind of go along with the theory they're general education students and should be graded by the general education teacher. But again, that's kind of up to you. But ultimately, modified students' assignments, the SEI teacher is going to know what they're looking for and they need to be responsible for grading it. However, it will be the responsibility of the general education teacher to implement those grades. Individual behavioral concerns addressed to the contact teacher. SEI teachers should be made aware of the behavior concerns and can help with strategies in behavior management, but it is the contact teacher who should be made aware and help address the individual behavior concerns. Contact teacher is your first go-to because they're really going to have the whole picture of what is going on with that student. The SEI teacher needs to be made aware, but again, they might not know more than you do in regards to what's happening at home or what's happened in other classes. That's why we go ahead and contact the contact teacher for all things in regards to behavior. All right. Let's go ahead and I'm going to go through these briefly as most of you are general education teachers and my special education teachers have already gone through a little bit of this. This correlates pretty much directly with what general education teachers have been given in regards to non-negotiables. We're going to meet on a weekly basis per each student's individual's IEP, the SEI minutes. SEI minutes will be determined on a weekly basis and delivered via SEI lesson plans and shared with the general education teacher. My teachers should be sharing lesson plans with you the same way that you're sharing lesson plans with us. Our lesson plans look like, when are we coming into your classroom? What are we planning on doing that day? If a change needs to be made in regards to a plan, a phone call or face-to-face discussion will need to be made and documented in the lesson plan, or an email will be sent prior to the time in which an SEI teacher should be in the class. So you should know if and when a teacher is not coming to class and they said they would be there. If that becomes a consistent problem, you're going to need to let me know and we'll have that discussion together. Accommodations must be understood and followed by the SEI teacher. If an SEI teacher has questions, it is imperative that they reach out to the contact teacher to seek clarification and training in order to implement and train the general education teacher. It's our responsibility to understand the accommodations most effectively so that we can make sure to help you in regards to implementing those accommodations. Test and answer keys will never be used to give answers or relay unneeded information. Answer keys to modified or accommodated tests assigned will be given to general education teachers. So again, we will give you our modified answer key the same way that you give an answer key to us. Lesson plans will be updated the morning of the actual day with the time in which the teacher will be in class. How SEI will be implemented will also need to be communicated. Assistance with given directions, breaking down vocabulary, accommodating and modifying assignments and tests which, when given, as per Gen Ed timeline, will be expected on a daily basis. This means that we're going to uphold what we say we're going to uphold in regards to assisting with the implementation of the services within your class. Classroom management policy will be reinforced as outlined by the general education teacher. So we're going to do what you're going off of what you find appropriate within the classroom. We also might have discussions in regards to ways that we think things can be done in order to help behavior decrease. Grading policy. Again, I kind of went over that with general education. It's the same exact thing. Equal decision making. Again, same thing for these teachers. And as the contact teacher, you will be addressing concerns for your contact students as soon as possible as they arrive. So that means our guarantee to you is that when you contact a contact teacher, they're going to make it a priority to come in and address behavior or have someone come in and address behavior. Some of the contact teachers are in self-contained class, some are teaching classes themselves, so they may have to send someone else to go and address that behavior, but again, they're relaying that information to someone. So it's our guarantee that we as contact teachers will be fully aware of the academic and behavioral concerns of our students, and we'll be the first ones to help go ahead and deliver a plan and make it appropriate for your student. Okay, let's go ahead and go back to the PowerPoint. All right, SPED information in Google. What are you going to find? This is quick, easy access to special education paperwork. It's 99% paperless and it's up to date. It also helps us track the progress monitoring in regards to our students' data tracking. Where are you going to find this? Well, all students' folders will be in the Shared With Me column when we share the folder with you. You will get an email that says that a folder has been shared with you, and this will happen at the beginning of the 9 weeks, every 9 weeks, and it will also happen if a student has an ARD during the time that they are in your class. We will reshare and ask for new teacher acknowledgement signatures each 9 weeks or if a student has a new ARD. Feel free to organize the folders for your benefit, typically by class period, but only move the whole student's folders and not individual documents, because be careful, you do have edit access in order for you to give updated information, so please do not delete the folders. Items in the student folder. So what are you going to find when you open it up? Well, each student is going to have an accommodations page and a determination of services page. This is on the same sheet. Please, 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 please be our check and read over the student's page and make sure this makes sense. If your subject is listed on your DOS and you do not have a co-teacher and they're not on that role, please ask the contact teacher. Seek clarification. We would love the clarification because we are looking at a lot of services and we want to make sure that we have everybody where they need to be. This could have IEP goals and documentation. It could have BIP goals and documentation. And then it's also going to have a teacher acknowledgement form. This must be signed and returned to the contact teacher each 9 weeks. Again, I'm sorry, I can't emphasize that enough, but we do need one each 9 weeks. So you're going to see this over and over again, it feels like. This is what the teacher acknowledgement looks like. Indicate all documents that you get in the Google folder. Select yes and yes or no on the training portion, but do not select the no. Otherwise, we're going to be coming to you and saying, what training do you need so that you can sign another one of these? We are not officially signed off on the teacher acknowledgement form unless we have a yes or a yes and no on both sections of this, okay? Your deadline for this is going to be Monday, August 26th. We will make sure to have those folders out to you the week prior so that you have a week to fully look through all of the documentation, all of the paperwork, and if you have any questions, you can let us know. Okay, I want to take a minute to go over paraprofessionals within your classroom. You may or may not have a paraprofessional that's going to be assigned to your room, but if they are assigned to your room, make sure they understand who they need to be working with and what they need to be working on. Generally, they won't be in class the entire period. Paraprofessionals can not provide new instruction, but can and should be aiding in behavior management, providing reteach opportunities. All of that sort of thing can really be given as good tasks for these paraprofessionals. I kind of get mind blown some of the time when I have a paraprofessional, an SEI teacher, and a general education teacher in a classroom, and there are a lot of behavioral concerns that are going undocumented because there are 3 people in there that can really help with documentation. So please make sure you're utilizing your paraprofessional as necessary in that classroom. They can take data, they can implement behavior plans, that sort of thing while they're in there. Paraprofessionals will not have access to computers or iPads unless provided by the general education teacher, so also keep that in mind. Lauren Johnson is the paraprofessional coach and can answer any questions about particular situations. So she's the one you want to go to if you have any questions about a paraprofessional, what you can do to help keep them on track. If you have concerns in regards to anything going on in the classroom, or if you want ideas on how to utilize your paraprofessional, she's the one to go to. Okay, requesting oral administration and small group testing. Again, we are going to do this again for electives or classes without an STI teacher. Okay, if a teacher needs to request oral administration, it needs to be done before 24 hours in advance. Okay, the link is listed right here, so you can go ahead and click on that and then save it to your desktop if you would like, or you can utilize this presentation to access it. Some things to consider. We are always trying to do our best to test on the same day. However, we are doing this accommodation in the base room, and sometimes if there's things going on, we have to make adjustments and ask if we can do the test the next day. Just work with us a little bit, but we'll be more than happy to get it done for you as long as you've requested it in advance. We will not be helping, as we talked about on the non-negotiables, on any questions to the test. That's not our job. We are specifically going to be providing the accommodation of reading that test to them. Teachers will need to submit the test by hand, delivering it to the base room, or sending it with the student to room D201 when it's time for testing. All right, I said I would talk a little bit about BASE. For most of you, this is not anything new, but I want to explain a little bit more about what it is and how it's going to be utilized. Okay, what is it? It's a safe place for students to self-refer to prevent disruptive behaviors in the general education environment. A classroom is staffed with specially trained professionals that process behavior and model appropriate strategies. An alternate discipline placement for students with a social skills goal or behavior plan, and it's only for special education students on our campus. It's not for anyone else. We apologize about that. What it is not the same thing as punishment. Okay, this is a processing class. We are trying to do things in order to better these students' behavior. So you have to understand and work with us in regards to the fact that these are trained professionals that know how to handle behavior. It's not a place for students a place for teachers to send students. It's only for administrative place only if a student is not a self-referral, and I'll get to that here in a second. It's not a place for students to avoid time spent in the general education classroom, and it's not a place for students to catch up on work. So understand that those are some things that we need to avoid in order to keep this program up and rolling in the way that it was meant to be. Okay, how do students get to BASE? Well, there's two ways. They're either self-referral or administrative placement. Students can ask to go to BASE. If they are a special education student and they ask to go to BASE, please just let them go to BASE. We average about 10 minutes per visit. If we get a student that we realize doesn't have BASE services, maybe there's a reason for that. So go ahead and send them. When in doubt, if you know they're a special education student, go ahead and send them to BASE if they are requesting it. Administrative placement is different. It kind of works in two different ways. This is an ISS placement for special education students. It's designed to process the behavior that got them there in the first place and maintain academic support. So they will be doing their assignments. They will be held to the specific rules in regards to that classroom. And the time and base may be adjusted as appropriate for the student to process their behavior. So just kind of understand that there's some things that are happening behind the surface. If you have questions or concerns, you can always ask the administrator or the BASE teacher. Can you send a student to BASE? No, you cannot. It's not a punishment. It's not a place that you need to go because you were bad. It is designed to teach students to stay in class. Our goal is to keep them in your classroom, so please do not send them to us because that kind of defeats the purpose in regards to those BASE services. Can I remind students that BASE is an option? You see them kind of escalating. You absolutely can remind them that they have BASE as an option. You can use the frame, would you like to use BASE at this time? Or do you think it would be a good time for you to utilize that BASE that we've talked about in the past? It's a resource for them. They may say no, and that's okay. Sometimes behaviors are more noticeable though from the outside looking in, and they may not identify that they need to go until someone reminds them. You're the professional, you make that call. If you have questions or concerns, we also can be reached in the BASE room, or you can go ahead and call down to my extension, and I'll be more than happy to either come up myself or locate someone that can help. Will students come back to your class? Yes. BASE teaches students to process behavior and then return to class. Your classroom is the least restrictive environment, and that is our aim. That is our place that we are trying to get them back to. Will I know if my student is in BASE? Yes, you will. You'll either have it as an ISS placement and it will come up, you will get an email requesting work to be sent to the BASE room, or obviously that student will leave using a self-referral. If that student self-refers in the previous class, we will try and contact you or send them with a note in regards to them being in BASE. We'll open that line of communication as necessary. How can I deal with challenging behavior? Ooh, this is a good one. You need to set those expectations, be proactive, be consistent, build relationships, and practice self-care. Document what you have tried and what is and isn't working. Also communicate with the contact teachers. They may want to take sample data as well. All of these things can be reviewed, and you can try and implement them in your classroom in order to set up a really enriched uh, environment so that challenging behavior is decreased. Let me show you how to document, however. The best documentation for behavior in our district is an ABC card. You may have heard about this before. I want to show you what it looks like and feel that you absolutely can fill this out yourselves. Contact teachers or SDI co-teachers can also track behavior this way. This is something that we're going to use in order to count up how many different times the behavior has occurred and what different strategies we have tried. If you need specific training after I've showed you this document, you can feel free to contact myself or a SPED staff member. They'll be more than happy to go over it with you. All right, so this is what an ABC card looks like. It stands for antecedent, behavior, and then consequence. Remember, consequences aren't necessarily bad things that happen. It's just your response to the behavior that's occurring. Again, the important things you need to list: the date, the time, how long did it happen. These are just truly, truly, truly imperative for us to have in order for us to identify this reoccurring behavior. Okay? If you check that they were asked to do something academic or not academic, just list right here, what was it that you asked them to do? You asked them to do a worksheet. You asked them to put their book away, put their cell phone away, that sort of thing. If they were told that they couldn't get something, is that the situation? If you took their cell phone away, that's a preferred activity. And if you started to give attention to others, what was it that happened? If you need to give brief descriptions, that's fine. Just don't turn this into an anecdotal document, because that's not going to be as efficient as if we can just check the check marks that are appropriate. Okay? Behavior. What did they do in regards to what happened? Non-compliance is a big one that happens. They just don't comply with what you ask them to do. You can even say head down, that sort of thing. That helps us out. Just simple keywords and phrases really do help. We don't want a big long journal, but keywords and phrases do help. Consequence, what happened after? What did you do? Did you keep asking for the same thing? Did you redirect them to the activity that you were going to? Did you ignore them? What did you do in order to really make sure that behavior tried to decrease, okay? So the big important thing when filling out behavior cards is that there needs to be separate ones for each type of behavior. So say this student spent 20 minutes of noncompliance, but then they started to work. And then 20 minutes later, they got their head right back down. Guess what? You can put in another behavior card, a second behavior card that also lasts that 20 minutes. So even though you can have, this doesn't just have to be one date and then a second date. It can actually be the same date and multiple things happening in the same class period, if that makes sense. So if you have questions, you require further training, it's pretty self-explanatory, but again, if you have more intense questions or you require more training, please, please, please feel free to let me know. I'll be more than happy to come in and work with you on that. All right, not much more to go. Let me go ahead. I'm going to... I apologize, having trouble with my slide here. Let's go ahead and go to the next one, which is how can I get more involved? If you'd like to be a Grand Ball volunteer, go ahead and let us know. We also have Grub Grill that you can participate in. You can get those emails from our lovely life skills staff. They would love for you to join us in regards to our Grub Grill. Also, Chex Mix orders, ready and made. If you're craving something on a Monday morning, Chex Mix is always a good thing. Also referring students to our Fit Club, which is our new club in regards to physical activity that integrates both general education and special education students. And then also refer students to Circle of Friends. These are two amazing opportunities that you can refer students to. If you want other volunteer opportunities, we get creative. So see me or see a SPED staff member if you've got an idea. Again, we love to think outside the box, so please let us know if you want to get involved in the program. Okay, so who can I contact for help? Hopefully, I've kind of emphasized the importance of contacting the contact teacher first and foremost in regards to specific students, and the SDI teacher in regards to the assigned class if you've got questions in regards to that. But those are your go-to people that are going to be on the front lines. Overall questions or concerns, you need to take it, up to that next level, or you just have something that doesn't directly relate to a specific student or a specific class, go ahead and contact me. I'm more than happy to answer questions that you may have. With behavioral questions or concerns, contact that base teacher. And then the administrator over special education that you can contact is Stephanie Gore. She's an amazing resource for our special education department. I want to thank you so much for viewing this. Now please take and complete the quiz. I hope that this has been very insightful for you, and if you have any further questions, please, please, please don't hesitate to let me know. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.